إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلله فلا هادي له ونشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له ونشهد أن سيدنا ومولانا محمدا عبده ورسوله أما بعد السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته and welcome to another guidance for the guided. Allow me to just remind the gentlemen that we are live. They are aware that we are live, so they're now sending the messages. Excellent. Okay, so let's crack on with our dars for today, inshallah. Then we will inform you of what is happening in the coming week. Okay, let me just push this further back. All right. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم يا أيها الذين آمنوا كونوا قوامين بالقسط شهداء لله ولو على أنفسكم أو الوالدين والأقربين. O those of you who believe, be qawamina, bearers of justice. Be bearers of justice, witnesses for the sake of Allah, even though it may be against yourselves and or against your parents or against those who are close to you, as in close relatives. So if we unpack this a little bit, we see that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala addresses the believers and he says to them that you have a particular task to do. And that task, he tells them, is that you are kunu qawamina bil qist, that you are bearers of justice. You are bearers of justice. So this is quite a weighty responsibility and quite a weighty title to give to this ummah. We spoke earlier, or when we rather, Allah SWT spoke earlier in the sense of, in an earlier surah, we had, kuntum khayra ummatin ukhrijat linnas, that you are the best of nation which has been taken out for the people. And we explained some virtues as to why those qualities existed. Why those qualities existed for this people. Why is it that Allah SWT considers this to be the best of nations? And the reason why they're considered as the best of nations, amongst those qualities we mentioned there, one of the qualities here is that they are qawamina bil qist, that they are bearers of justice, meaning that the Muslim ummah responsible is to be just and to ensure justice prevails. All right? They have to ensure that justice prevails. So this is about being an honest community, a trustworthy community, a community that everybody else can rely on for being honest and fair. Unfortunately, we're some distance away from that, unfortunately, in most cases. In some rare cases, we are seen to be bearers of justice. We're bearers of being honest, being fair. And also the second responsibility that the Muslim Ummah has is shuhada'a lillah. You are witnesses for Allah. You are witnesses for Allah. Meaning that, first of all, you are here to ensure justice prevails on the earth. That's your first responsibility. Your second responsibility is that you act as witnesses, meaning that you are observing. So whenever there is a case to determine who's at fault, or whenever there is a case to determine who is speaking honestly, that whenever there is a case where justice needs to prevail, the Muslims should be called upon to act as witnesses. Unfortunately, how far are we away from that? Somebody hits somebody's car and suddenly all these witnesses appear from nowhere and they said, oh, I saw it, and they make a false claim against you. Completely opposite to how the Quran describes this ummah. And it says that not only are you here to make sure justice prevails, not only are you here to be witnesses for the sake of Allah, you are also supposed to bear witness, even if it means against yourselves, that the truth and honesty and the status of the believer is so high that even if it means that you bear witness against yourself, you as an individual, if you lose out, that's fine. As long as Islam, or those people who make the claim that they are following Islam, that those individuals are just, So yes, an individual, if you're just, for example, you're driving the car and you drive into the back of someone, you think, you know what, nobody was here. I could just drive off. Yes, I've caused a little bit of damage to my car, but it's not major. I can get that sorted and it's done. Right? But you don't have somebody seeing you, somebody's observed you. Right? If somebody's seen you or somebody's observed you, you're not seeing that. You're just thinking about myself. I've got to make sure that I drive away from here. Nobody else gets to see it. And it's minimum damage. Because why? We don't want to make a payment out. Even though we were at fault, we've driven into the back of someone. It wasn't the other person's fault. He was parked up. It was us. We got distracted by our phone or we got distracted by something and we ended up driving into the back of someone. But now, instead of taking the responsibility for what we've done, we want to shirk our responsibilities. We want to run away from our responsibilities. So instead, what we do is we say, okay, let me just quickly drive off. So if somebody does see it, then they think, oh, look, that person looks like a Muslim. And look at the behavior of the Muslim. Dishonesty, untrustworthiness, not taking responsibility, and driving off. But if this person stands his ground, waits, leaves either a note in the windscreen of the car or waits for the person to arrive and says to them, look, I accidentally went to the back of your car. Sincere apologies. Let's exchange insurance details and I'll make sure that your car is repaired. Now, can you imagine this person makes a loss? He might end up paying a few £100 out, but he's at fault anyway. He might end up paying a few £100 out. But what it does to the other person that he hit, that person thinks, wow, you Muslims are pretty honest people. You could have driven off. I wouldn't have known. But you actually stayed here, parked up, and you bore witness against yourself. You incriminated yourself by saying, I drove into the back of you. That's exactly what Allah SWT is talking about. Shuhada'a lillah. Now, some people might say, yeah, but that guy's an idiot. I said, what do you mean that guy's an idiot? That guy's an idiot that he stayed there and waited for the driver to come out for him to share his details. He should have just driven off. He would have won. You see. Now, what this person thinks is that short-term gain is the real gain. What he fails to realize is that there is no real escape because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has witnessed it. The angels have witnessed it. The ground has witnessed it. The cars themselves have witnessed it. Your own body has witnessed it. And on Yawm al-Qiyamah, they will be called to account and they will speak against you. So you will still have to pay. The advantage of paying it in the earth is that you may pay a few £100 and you might earn that few £100 later, which most likely you will if you're going to be alive for another few weeks. But when you have to pay it on the day of judgment, then you've only got a finite amount of wealth. You've only got a finite amount of resources, assets, which is good deeds. And if you expend them there is no way to regain them back. And even if it means you bear witness against your own parents, look how difficult it is to bear witness against your own parents. Right? How difficult it is to bear witness against your own parents. But you need to be just, you need to be fair. Right? You need to be just, you need to be fair. Otherwise, that you will be held accountable. Wal aqrabin, and those who are close to you. إِيَّكُنْ غَنِيًّا أَوْ فَقِيرًا فَاللَّهُ أَوْلَى بِهِمَا. If you are rich or if you are poor, then Allah has a greater right to you to both. فَلَا تَتَّبِعُوا الْهَوَىٰ أَن تَعْدِلُوا. And do not follow your desires that you are not just. Meaning, don't see what is beneficial for you. That you only act just when its benefit has a benefit for you. And you don't act just when it doesn't have a benefit for you. That's not how you should operate. This is not about what benefits you. You should operate in a way which benefits what Allah has instructed you to do, irrespective of where the benefit falls, whether it falls for you or doesn't fall for you. وَإِن تَلْوُوا أَوْ تُعْرِضُوا فَإِنَّ اللَّهَ كَانَ بِمَا تَعْمَلُونَ خَبِيرًا. And if you turn away or if you distort, then indeed Allah, regarding what you are doing, is all well aware. You cannot deceive him. The angels are recording it. Everybody knows what the truth is. You yourself know what the truth is. By distorting this, by making statements which don't exist, by acting in this particular way, thinking that this is going to be work for your benefit. In reality, this is not going to work for your benefit. It's just you don't see it yet. Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu, آمنوا بالله ورسوله والكتاب الذي نزل على رسوله والكتاب الذي أنزل من قبل. Or those of you who believe, believe. So this shows that, that even those who believe, they are instructed to believe. So believing is a active verb. It's an active act. It is not that you are in a state of belief and you stay in a state of belief. It is not just something that is an act that stays with you persistently and consistently throughout, but rather you have to always be believing. Okay, so like, for example, I'm sat down now, okay, or I might be writing, for example, yeah? So I'm writing now, so I'm a writer. But you know full well that I'm not a writer, as in I don't write all the time. I stand up, I walk, I talk, I do different things. So for me to be a consistent and persistent writer, I would have to write all the time. If I put my pen down now, I cease to be a writer. So similarly, being a believer means that you have to believe consistently and persistently. That is belief. So how do you believe consistently and persistently? How do you always ensure you're believing? Well, it's usually easy because there's acts which come to us quite regularly in which we have to express our belief. So there might be ritual acts of worship, which are the easy ones, but there also may be our behaviors, our mannerisms, the way we conduct ourselves, the way we engage with people around us. This is something which, if we're God conscious, if we're reminding ourselves of Allah, if we're connected to Allah, then it will always be an expression of our belief. So first thing is believe. Then aminu billahi, believe in Allah. We've talked a little bit about that already. Wa rasulihi, believe in his messenger, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So whenever Rasul is mentioned, generally, then it's reference to the messenger, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Now believe in his messenger. Wal kitab alladhi nazzala ala rasulihi, and also believe in the book that was sent down over a period of time to his messenger. If you look at the verb nazzala, the verb nazzala means when something is being revealed constantly. Okay, it's not a one-off act, that it is over a period of time. وَالْكِتَابِ الَّذِي أَنزَلَ مِنْ قَبْلِ, and also the also the book that was revealed from before, and that was sent down all in one go. That's why it says anzala. Anzala means something which descended in one. It's one act of descension, one act of revelation. Whereas nazala is a constant act of revelation, or a constant being sent down. Because the Quran, as mentioned previously, has been revealed over 22 years and 10 months approximately. And whereas the other books, the Injil, the Torah, books of the nature of the past, they were all revealed in one go, complete. Whereas the Quran was taking context into consideration because it was the last book, and therefore you see it taking into consideration Muslims as a persecuted minority in Mecca to Muslims as a powerhouse in Medina and everything else in between. Why? Because Muslims from the time of the Prophet ﷺ till the end of days will either live as a persecuted minority, or they will live as a powerful state and everything else in between. وَمَنْ يَكْفُرْ بِاللَّهِ وَمَلَائِكَتِهِ وَكُتُبِهِ وَرُسُلِهِ وَالْيَوْمِ الْآخِرِ فَقَدْ ضَلَّ ضَلَالًا بَعِيدًا. And whomsoever disbelieves in Allah and also in his angels and in his books and in his messengers and in the last day, then indeed he has gone a far deviation. And many of you will remember as children in maktab memorizing, amantu billahi wa malaikatihi wa kutubihi wa rusulihi wal yawmil akhir wal qadri khairi wa sharrihi min Allah ta'ala wal ba'th ba'da al maut. So if you look at that, it pretty much incorporates this ayah. Yani billahi, malaika, kutub, rusul, yawmil akhir. What it doesn't mention, obviously, is the qadr, the taqdeer, predestination, and it doesn't mention the day of judgment. إن الذين آمنوا ثم كفروا ثم آمنوا ثم كفروا ثم ازدادوا كفرا لم يكن الله ليغفر لهم ولا ليهدهم سبيلا. And then there's a warning which is sent out. And the warning which is sent out is to those people who sway, between belief and doubt and disbelief. Belief, doubt, and disbelief. So sometimes, usually around the time of Ramadan, their iman is strong, their belief is strong, and they're pushing and they literally believe everything they're hearing, and they're very good. They're in a good place, as they say. And then as time goes on and we come out of this spiritual heightened state, then what happens is doubt starts to creep back in again. They're unsure, they're uncertain, and slowly they let their Islamic practices go again, and they start to get back into old habits, until eventually that doubt, God forbid, has reached a point of denial. Okay, has reached a point of denial. Some bad things happen in their life, and they think, well, where is Allah? Why isn't Allah stopping these bad things happening in my life? I believe in Him, I ask Him, I pray to Him, I supplicate to Him. Why isn't He not stepping in to clear these from mine? And this unfortunately brings denial into their heart, that if He was there, He would have stopped this. He hasn't stopped this, therefore He's not there. And unfortunately, people end up in that state, aliyadu billah. And then they, reconnect with the community. They, somehow end up in an environment. They listen to a lecture. A close friend or family member is a little bit charged up with the faith, and suddenly that little spark lights up inside of them again. And slowly they can't start coming back from denial to maybe not, a little bit of doubt, until eventually the iman is burning inside of them again. And now everything seems clear again. The cloud and the mist has lifted, and there's clarity in their thought, there's clarity in their beliefs, and they're back to where they were the first time around. So the iman becomes strong. And unfortunately, the wave repeats itself, where the doubt creeps in again and whatever. The fear is for this person. The fear is for this person who's swaying. Right? I heard a phrase many moons ago, which was quite strange when I heard it. That it still sticks with me to this day, where one particular sister was talking to me, and she said, "Oh, Mufti, I'm dipping in and out of Islam." And at that time, I thought, what does that even mean? I'm dipping in and out of Islam. What does that mean? And when she did elaborate, what she meant by that is she has days where the faith seems the most obvious thing, and there's so much certainty in her belief, so much yaqeen in her. And then some days, some weeks later, she has this doubt. And then sometime later, that doubt has become even firmer to denial. And therefore, she sometimes, practices hijab and engages in Islamic practices. And in other cases, her dress code completely changes, her behavior completely changes, her ritual acts cease to exist. So if this person continues to do this, there could come a time where Allah ceases to forgive this person. Even though now this person is asking for forgiveness, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ceases to forgive them. He closes the door of forgiveness to them, and wala liyahdiyahum sabila, and neither does He guide them at all. Now, a person won't recognize that in his heart, that, oh, Allah stopped forgiving me, Allah stopped guiding me, because you don't sense it. So this person might now think, oh, I'm back on iman again. The doubt has gone, I've got certainty again. But what they fail to realize is Allah has closed the door to this person now. And this is just now in their imagination. This is just what they're thinking. And that door won't open again. So one has to be very careful that once you've accepted Islam, once you've, become aware of it, for those people who've been dormant Muslims, and now you've awoken and you're aware of it, and now what you should do is hold fast to it. And if you feel either doubt coming in or confusion coming in or lack of certainty, then you need to think that I'm in the wrong environment. A session or 2 sessions ago, we talked about the erosion of faith. And I gave a similitude of erosion, generally speaking, like we see the erosion of the wind or erosion of water, and where solid stone is eroded. So in this case as well, we need to change that environment we're in, because where we are, who we are with is causing us a problem, and we need to get away from there. We need to be around the books of Deen. We need to be around the buildings of Deen. We need to be around the people of Deen. Bashir al-munafiqina bi anna lahum adhaban alima. And then said in somewhat in ridicule is, give glad tidings to the munafiqin, the hypocrites. Now, obviously This is not, it's a more of a sarcastic tone. It's more of a phrase to ridicule. بِأَنَّ لَهُمْ عَذَابًا أَلِيمًا, that indeed for them is a painful punishment. So that's not really glad tidings, but it's said in that way. So who are the munafiqun? The munafiqun alladhina yattakhiduna al-kafirina awliya'a min duni al-mu'minin. Those who take the kafirin as protectors other than the believers. And that is unfortunately a sign of nifaq. And we see that across the world, in the geopolitics that are going on right in front of us today, in other scenarios where Muslim nations, Muslims, instead of taking protection from one another, instead of safeguarding one another, they're taking protection from those who are actually their enemies, but they just don't realize it yet. They're just not on the menu at the moment. They will eventually come onto the menu, but right now they're not on the menu. And because, unfortunately, leaders and people are looking out for their own needs, they're prioritizing their own needs over their people's needs. They think this is the only way that I can stay in power. This is the only way we can stay in power and live the life that we're living. Are you trying to seek honor with them by hanging out with those individuals, by these large, powerful countries and these large, powerful people? Is that why you want to go? Because you think there's honor with them? That you're going to gain respect from them? Is that why? You think by throwing money at them? You think by pleasing them? You think by honoring them? You think by rolling out the red carpet to them, that this will give you honor? No. فَإِنَّ الْعِزَّةَ لِلَّهِ جَمِيعًا. For indeed, izzah, honor is solely for Allah. وَقَدْ نَزَّلَ عَلَيْكُمْ فِي الْكِتَابِ أَنْ إِذَا سَمِعْتُمْ آيَاتِ اللَّهِ يُكْفَرُ بِهَا وَيُسْتَهْزَأُ بِهَا فَلَا تَقْعُدُوا مَعَهُمْ حَتَّى يَخُوضُوا فِي حَدِيثٍ غَيْرِهِ. And indeed, we have revealed to you in the book that إِذَا سَمِعْتُمْ, that when you hear the verses of Allah, يُكْفَرُ بِهَا, they disbelieve in them, وَيُسْتَهْزَأُ بِهَا, and they ridicule them, they mock them. فَلَا تَقْعُدُوا مَعَهُمْ, so don't sit with those people who are mocking your religion, who are ridiculing your religion. Again, we've heard some rhetoric come out of the states and other countries speaking so badly about the religious faith, in a very derogatory way. And then they think that they're protecting other Muslim states. Do you have any sense of what you are saying? How can you have such a negative and such a, you mock the religion of Islam, and then at the same time you're holding your hand out for payments? And what's this all about? So if they have that type of behavior, فَلَا تَقْعُدُوا مَعَهُمْ, don't sit with them, don't associate with them, because if you sit with them and if you associate yourself with them, then by association, you will also be condemned. Because the way, if a group of people are talking about something which you disagree with, but you stay with them, then you are party to their discussions. Because if you disagree with them, you get up and walk out. That is you literally walking out, voting with your feet, saying, I will not be party to this. I don't have anything to do with this. I want out. And you get up and leave. حَتَّى يَخُوضُوا فِي حَدِيثٍ غَيْرِ, until they engage in a topic other than this, other than religion. And that also happens a lot, doesn't it? Unfortunately, even as Muslims, we sit together. As Muslims, when we sit together, we somehow end up talking about Islam, one way or the other, right? It's very unfortunate whenever I go to, say, somebody's house as a guest, and it's not just all ulama, meaning there's non-ulama there primarily. And I always fear that I hope this conversation is quite amicable, lasts for 2-3 minutes, we can give salam to each other, we can disappear. Because one way or the other, somebody has to have a go at something religious, or have a go at a scholar, or have a go at religious practice, or whatever. And then obviously there's ridiculing, there's whatever. And what people fail to realize is, why are you talking about a topic which you have no experience of, that you have no knowledge of? Just stray away from these topics. Talk about something else. Talk about football if you have to. Talk about, the what's the state the world is in. Ask about how you can benefit yourself. Okay, have a productive conversation about, the benefits of philosophy or something. But no, somehow, one way or the other, the conversation comes onto Islam, or onto knowledge of scholars or something like that, and people start expressing their opinions. I think this, I think that, I think this, I think that. And then unfortunately, as a scholar, when you're sat there, you have a problem now. If you stay quiet, then it will be said, oh, we mentioned that in front of the scholar and he stayed quiet, so that must mean it's okay. If you comment, then, you become this big bad wolf that has an issue with everybody and is always, sensitive to things. But what they fail to realize is you're not sensitive. You can't sit there, listen to what's being said about the deen and stay quiet to it or be party to it. So it's always best to say, look, brothers, can we not just change the subject? Let's talk about something else. Or you talk about something else. I wasn't even part of the conversation. Yeah, because this is doing no good for you. In fact, quite the opposite. This is doing bad for you. This is destroying your akhirah. Only talk about something which you have knowledge of. And if you have no knowledge of, I hear many people say, oh, Mufti, I know you're a Mufti and you know better than me. And then he'll still carry on. So I'll always smile. I'll have a wry smile across myself because I'll actually, start with a little disclaimer. Oh, Mufti, you know this, you know better than me. And then they'll still say it. And sometimes, usually, they say it wrong. Now you have to correct them in front of a room full of people. And unfortunately, most of these, people of the general public will have egos. So they'll feel embarrassed. But then you can't sit there and nod and say, yep, you're right, when they're saying something completely silly, something which makes no sense whatsoever. So let's not sit together whenever people get together and start talking about religion. Leave that topic off the table. Focus about whatever else you want to talk about, which is halal, mubah, but avoid religious talk. Unless, of course, you're asking for a scholar's opinion or something. Or you're reminding each other about, the akhirah. You're reminding each other about death. You're reminding each other about, a sunnah. That's different, right? That's different. But generally speaking, unfortunately, we're not doing that. Innakum idham mithluhum. Otherwise, then you will be like them. Because you're sat amongst them, you'll be counted amongst them. Inna Allah jami'ul munafiqina wal kafirina fi jahannama jami'a. Indeed, Allah will be the gatherer of the hypocrites and the gatherer of the disbelievers in Jahannam all together. Alladhina yatarabbasuna bikum, those who are watching closely from amongst you. فَإِنْ كَانَ لَكُمْ فَتْحٌ, if you have a victory from Allah, قَالُوا أَلَمْ نَكُمْ مَعَكُمْ, weren't we with you? وَإِنْ كَانَ لِلْكَافِرِينَ نَصِيب, if on the other hand, the kuffar have their day, قَالُوا أَلَمْ نَسْتَحْوِذْ عَلَيْكُمْ وَنَمْنَعَكُمْ مِنَ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ, did we not deter you, from or stop you from the mu'mineen? So what you find here is there's another group, as we call them, the fence sitters. A group of people who are fence sitters, who are in doubt, who don't decide upon Iman because of what they look into their hearts and see that this is a good thing, but they decide Iman on the success. Yeah. Glory hunters, we call them, that, at the time when, I don't know, when the Liverpool were doing well, they were Liverpool supporters. When Chelsea was doing well, they were Chelsea supporters. When Arsenal were doing them, so they're just glory supporters, right? They just go where there's victory and they side with that side which is victorious. So similarly, in the faith situation, there was a group that were fence sitters. They hadn't really made their mind up. Shall we believe or shall we not believe? So they weren't looking at the world and the creation of Allah and reflecting and pondering and all the rest of it. All they did was say, let's see what happens. And if the believers were victorious, or they had a good situation, or they started to gain honor amongst the people, or people were looking at the believers in a positive way, then they said, oh, we're also believers like you. We're with you. If, on the other hand, the believers were ridiculed, looked down upon, or the disbelievers were victorious in something, then they said, well, we did warn you, don't hang out with these guys. Look what's happened to them, and you were with them and we weren't with you, we were over here. So they're another group of people who sway, just going when there's success. Like, again, for Muslims, when Islam is in, like Ramadan, then suddenly everybody's a Sufi. Everybody's putting up on their Instas and their statuses and everything, that all this religious talk. Yeah, religious talk. There's hardly anything penetrating into their hearts. There's hardly anything penetrating into their behavior, but it's all these nice things, whatever. And as soon as it's fashionable to put, I don't know, something else up, then they'll put something else up. then religion will be put on pause for a while. So it's, it's whatever is fashionable. If something is fashionable now, then Islam is fashionable. If Islam is not fashionable, then leave Islam. And it's a pick and choice. So this is a very dangerous position to be in. فَاللَّهُ يَحْكُمُ بَيْنَكُمْ يَوْمَ الْقِيَامَةِ, for Allah will judge between you on the day of judgment. وَلَا يَجْعَلَ اللَّهُ لِلْكَافِرِينَ عَلَى الْمُؤْمِنِينَ سَبِيلًا, and Allah will never make for the kafirin against the believers a way. So even if they have little victories here and there, there will never come a time where they will be absolutely dominant over the believers. إِنَّ الْمُنَافِقِينَ يُخَادِئُونَ اللَّهَ وَهُوَ خَادِئُهُم. Indeed, those who are munafiqeen, they attempt to deceive Allah. They think by concealing their disbelief and making apparent their belief that Allah does not know. We've tricked him. And this is their, stupidity, naivety. وَهُوَ خَادِئُهُم. What they fail to realize is Allah will know, is fully aware of what's going on, and he will exact revenge at the right time. وَإِذَا قَامُوا إِلَى الصَّلَاةِ قَامُوا كُسَالَى. And when they stand for salah, they stand in a lazy way. We see it, unfortunately, during Taraweeh, chaps at the back, sat down, playing on their phones, feeling tired, waiting for Imam to go into ruku, and then quickly stand up, if they stand up at all, or think, I'll join in the last rakat. And this, lazily getting up as if they've been, run the marathon or something. This is not a good sign. This is a sign of nifaq, unfortunately. This is a sign of hypocrisy. And one has to be very careful that they don't come across by doing the actions of hypocrites, because they will be grouped with the hypocrites. يُرَاءُونَ النَّاسَ وَلَا يَذْكُرُونَ اللَّهَ إِلَّا قَلِيلًا. They want to show to the people that they're praying. Okay, they want to show, look, I'm with you guys, that's why I'm praying here. But they don't remember Allah at all, except a very little bit. They just stand there, move around. مُذَبْذَبِينَ بَيْنَ ذَلِكَ. They sway between that. And we've talked about this swaying throughout this ruku today, this ruku and a half, about people who are swaying between faith and no faith. Okay, going as far as denial, as far as deception. لَا إِلَهَ أُولَٰئِ وَلَا إِلَهَ أُولَٰئِ. Neither are they towards that, and neither are they towards that. وَمَن يُضْلِلِ اللَّهُ فَلَن تَجِدَ لَهُ سَبِيلًا. Whomsoever Allah allows to be deviated, they will never find a path. يَا أَيُّهَا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا لَا تَتَّخِذُوا الْكَافِرِينَ أَوْلِيَاءَ مِن دُونِ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ. Or those of you who believe, do not take those who deny me as protectors from other than believers. Meaning, take believers as your protectors. You are all the same. You all believe in the same God. You all follow the same prophet. You all believe in the same book. Why are you not helping each other out? Why are you asking people who deny your prophet, who deny your book, who deny your faith? Why are you asking them for? أَتُرِيدُونَ أَن تَجْعَلُوا لِلَّهِ عَلَيْكُمْ سُلْطَانًا مُبِينًا. Are you intending to make for Allah against you a clear proof that he will hold against you on the day of judgment? إِنَّ الْمُنَافِقِينَ فِي الدَّرْكِ الْأَسْفَلِ مِنَ النَّارِ. Indeed, those who are hypocrites will be in the depths of the lowest depth of the Jahannam. وَلَن تَجِدَ لَهُمْ نَصِيرًا. And you will never find for them a helper, however his door is open. إِلَّا الَّذِينَ تَابُوا. Except those who repent. وَأَصْلَحُوا. And they do good. وَاعْتَصَمُوا. And they hold fast. بِاللَّهِ. To Allah. وَأَخْلَصُوا دِينَهُمْ لِلَّهِ. And they make their deen khalis, pure. Okay, pure, sincerely, for the sake of Allah. فَأُولَٰئِكَ مَعَ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ. Then they are with the believers. They will be included with their believers, and their past misdemeanors will be forgiven. Why will their past misdemeanors be forgiven? Because they have repented to Allah. وَأَصْلَحُوا. They fixed what they did wrong. وَاعْتَصَمُوا. They held fast to Allah. وَأَخْلَصُوا دِينَهُمْ. And they were sincere in their faith. They are then counted with the believers. وَسَوْفَ يُؤْتِ اللَّهُ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ أَجْرًا عَظِيمًا. Soon Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give to the believers a great reward. مَا يَفْعَلُ اللَّهُ بِعَذَابِكُمْ إِن شَكَرْتُمْ وَآمَنْتُمْ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will not. مَا يَفْعَلُ اللَّهُ بِعَذَابِكُمْ إِن شَكَرْتُمْ. Why would Allah punish you? Or what would Allah do with your punishment if you are grateful and believe, meaning he's not going to punish you. Why would he punish you? As long as you are grateful and you believe, then that's all he's after, for your benefit. Wa kana Allahu shakiran alima, and indeed Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is content when people come asking for his forgiveness, and also he is all knowledgeable. I will stop the dars there for today, which is the 8th of March. And that brings us to the end of the 5th juz, and we'll start inshallah the 6th juz tomorrow. So, well, not tomorrow. So tomorrow, obviously, things will be a little bit different. What I mean by a little bit different is there will be no dars tomorrow, because I will be traveling down to London. So there's no dars tomorrow. On Tuesday, this is the itinerary we have so far. This may change slightly, but for now, this is what we have. Where is it? There it is. There's 3 or 4 other things to be added to it. So Fajr, inshallah, we will have guidance for the guided at Fajr time. Okay, so this is a change on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday morning. There won't be guidance for the guided in the evening. It will be guidance for the guided after Fajr. Make a note of that. After Asr, there will be different programs in different places. So there's about 3 or 4 masajids that I will be visiting, inshallah. So there will be different programs there. There will be a workshop, zakat workshop, on Thursday. This will take place at Rawda, which is the shade something or other. Forgotten the name of it. And Jummah will be in Masjid Umar as well. And on Asr at Masjid Umar, it will be a Q&A for chaps. And then there is Masjid Isa after Isha on Friday. And on Saturday, Dhuhr, there will be a Q&A for sisters at Masjid Umar. There's about 3 or 4 other Croydon Masjid after Taraweeh, one of the days which we need to fit in, and also meeting with some ulama as well. And then there is a madrasa in Kent, and also I will be in Darul Uloom, London. So quite a busy schedule. Hope it all goes well, inshallah. But do, as I've repeated previously, keep it, connect with the channel, the YouTube channel. You'll get notifications whenever we go live. Also connect on our WhatsApp groups and our Telegram groups, so you have that as well. There won't be no fiqh hour this week. But like I said, after Asr on Friday, there will be a Q&A. So I will check questions on the Markaz al-Ifta wal Qāḍī gents and the Markaz al-Ifta wal Qāḍī ladies group. And then on Saturday, I will also check those groups for the ladies session. So they're the only 2 times. And then we will be back on the following week, back to normal. So I'm hoping that Sunday we are back to normal with our guidance for the guided, and moving on. There will be 2 other or 3 potential programs that I may be involved in for the Saudi followers. On their 27th, I might be delivering a lecture here in Bradford. And then for the local regional followers on their 27th, we'll be delivering a lecture here in Bradford. And then if our Eids do not fall together, then I may be leading an Eid Salah as well. So we'll discuss that when I return, inshallah, next week on Sunday or Saturday. I'll try to do maybe a fit on the guidance for the guided on Saturday. Just depends how I feel. If I'm tired, then obviously I won't do that. If I'm not tired, inshallah, I will do that because I'll be traveling back about 2 o'clock. So I'll probably get here around 6 iftar time. And then if I'm tired after traveling, I might say, leave it, inshallah. And then we'll do that on Sunday instead. I had a slightly off-topic question regarding unity. With the ongoing bombardment in Iran, there seems to be some division in the community. Some Muslims refer to Iran's role in Syria and the deaths of many Sunnis, while others emphasize concern for the innocent civilians currently being affected. From an Islamic perspective, how should Muslims approach situations like this, where past grievances exist but innocent people are suffering? Yeah, I have obviously, through a few of my conversations over this week, touched upon the topic that's going on. Obviously, I don't live with my head in the sand. We're all aware of it, but you'll notice I haven't given it as much attention because what happens is we become sort of social commentators, and we just become, we're just sat like watching a movie, and we're just commentating on what we're watching, and we're viewers, and we're spectators. When in reality, we have a lot to do. Some people are talking about the end of days. That is this the big plan for the world to change? And then is this Ya'juj Ma'juj coming next? And are we there? Are we near the end of times? Well, does it matter? I know that sounds a bit nonchalant, but are we prepped for that? Are you prepped for that? Am I prepped for that if that happens? So I'm a very pragmatic and practical type of bloke when I look at what is within my power and what is it I can do to make my situation better, and how can I share that with people. So that's my kind of general advice. Hence the reason why you've not seen me deep dive into it and start spending hours and hours, commentating as much as fun as it sounds and all the rest of it. And I leave that to other commentators. With regards to, past issues, of course, obviously, people taking innocent lives is wrong. There is no right to that. It is an innocent life. And killing people, regardless, dropping bombs on them, this is not something we should be taken lightly. And unfortunately, Muslims have been at the wrong end of it, so to speak, for a long, long time. And this doesn't just go back to this last century. This goes back to the time of colonization, which goes back, another 100 or so years. So, Muslims have been suffering because the Europeans colonized much of the Muslim world when Muslims were becoming weak, and the Western world was becoming more powerful. And, many groups of people were enslaved. Many were killed. If I tell you the stories of the way ulama were treated in India, burnt on, sticks, bodies placed in skin of pigs, arrested and locked up in places like Malta. And they weren't the only ones. We saw how the Algerian Muslims were treated. We saw how the Moroccan Muslims were treated. Many, many scholars killed. So this is nothing new. Unfortunately, Muslims have been at the end of it for the last couple of centuries. And I guess, unfortunately, this will carry on. So that's one thing about death. The second thing is we don't live in a black and white world. We haven't lived in a black and white world for a long time. We unfortunately assume we live in a black and white world. We don't live in a black and white world. Okay. For example, the Pakistanis amongst us and the Indians amongst us, people will say, oh, Pakistan is a Muslim country. India is a democratic country, or it's a country of polytheism. But it's strange, isn't it, that you can have a Christian soldier in the Pakistani army and you can have a Muslim soldier in the Indian army. Who's right and who's wrong now? Right? Who's right and who's wrong now when the Indian soldier is shooting the Pakistani soldier, when the Pakistani soldier is Christian and the Indian soldier is a Muslim? And we see that across there. We're seeing, Afghanistan and Pakistan exchanging bombs on each other, both Muslim countries. Unless we do not have to go that far back when Bangladesh found its independence from Pakistan, before it was called East Pakistan and West Pakistan, with India in the middle. And obviously Bangladesh was formed in the early 1970s, which is not a million years ago. So, there's a lot of gray. There's a lot of gray. Muslims, unfortunately, have also been killing Muslims. That's nothing new there as well. So when the Bangladesh-Pakistan war was going on, the Pakistanis were killing Bangladeshis and Bangladeshis were killing Pakistanis. So that's even when, Pakistan was founded, and how many wars Pakistan has had with India. Muslims have killed Muslims. Again, I've just mentioned recently Afghanistan and Pakistan. Muslims are killing Muslims. So we've had our fair share of killing people as well. The Europeans went through it during the First World War. They didn't learn the lesson. So they went through it again for the Second World War. And now they've pretty much learned the lesson. So apart from the odd wars we see, like the Ukraine war, and And if we kind of join the dots of how Ukraine and Israel are connected and how Russia is very suspicious of Israel's regional plans, then, the Europeans aren't killing each other as much as the Muslims are killing each other. So like I said, we're not necessarily, from a Sharia perspective, are required to give a position. You're not going to be asked in your grave, were you for Iran or were you not for Iran? And that's not a question that's going to be asked of you. What's going to be asked of you is what you're doing with your life. So that's something I want to really emphasize. I'm not going to get drawn into being a social commentator and, join this person because of that, join that person because of that. With regards to du'as, then we should make dua for peace on this planet. Because when there's peace, our message, as in the message of truth, will spread very quickly because it's the message of truth. And therefore that's the case. But generally speaking, to try to answer this question, there seems to be some division in the community. Some Muslims refer to Iran as one Syria and the deaths of many Sunnis, whilst others emphasize concern for the innocent civilians currently being affected. From an Islamic perspective, how should Muslims approach a situation like this where past grievances exist but innocent people are suffering? Innocent people should not suffer. Two wrongs do not make a right. Muslims do not believe that two wrongs make a right. So anywhere where innocents are being killed, whoever they are, then we should condemn that and we should not agree with it. Because if we agree with it, then even if we don't do the act itself, we are partly to blame for it. Of course, we are powerless in the sense of we're just normal people here. There are bigger and more powerful people on the planet. There are governments that are watching, that are not doing anything as yet. But that's just unfortunately the value of humans. And it won't be the powerful and rich people, apart from obviously if they're being targeted for assassination. It will be the poor people that don't have bunkers, that have nowhere to go, that don't have early warning systems, and that will just get killed. So I hope I've kind of answered that question for you. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Sheikh, is there any verses of ahadith or hadith that refer to oppressors overcoming other oppressors? Allah bless you. Oppressors overcoming other oppressors. Not that one that springs to mind. But we know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has said that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will use groups of people against other groups of people in order to keep a balance in this world. And that doesn't necessarily mean that it will always favor believers. And this is his sunnah. This is his methodology, where there will always be this fluctuation, this change, this power dynamics change. We know, for example, at one time, the British Empire was all powerful from a worldly perspective. It had conquered nearly a quarter of the planet. The famous saying goes, the sun never set on Queen Victoria's Great Britain. And it was called Great Britain for a reason, because somewhere on the planet was the British Empire, spanning across continents. Don't forget, the US was also part of the British Empire until the Americans, whoever they are, founded themselves a few centuries ago. And then we have the USA, which is this powerful group that has been now in dominance as Great Britain sort of went down the other way. And then there will be another group that will come after that, most likely, because, not everybody stays in power for forever. They have their day, a few hundred years, and then they move. So that will always be the case. That will happen. If we look at, with regards to saying Iran and what they did in Syria and what they've done in other places, there are closer Muslim countries to Iran that they could have exacted, revenge on. The Iraq-Iran war back in the 80s was initiated by Saddam Hussein, and at that time was supported by the Americans, because at that time, after the Shah of Iran was removed, if you share the verse, Hamza, then I'll have a look at it, which verse you're referring to. When, for instance, when 1979 was the Iranian Revolution or the Islamic Revolution, then the Americans didn't like the Islamic Revolution back in 1979. So what they did then was they funded Saddam Hussein in the 80s to go to war against Iran, a proxy war. That war lasted, I think, for about 8 years. There were millions of Muslims killed in that. Millions. And then they turned on that very same person that they was using to destroy Iran because he got too big for his boots. Okay, he got too big for his boots. He wanted to become a regional player. And that's what's happening at the moment in the Middle East. Is there's a, the Europe is pretty much fixed now. There's going to be hardly any wars in Europe because it's just the way it's fixed. America's hardly going to go to war in North or America or in South America. China, Russia is pretty fixed, even though there's a little bit of movement in Russia, or they're trying to do that when the USSR collapsed. Africa is open season, but I don't think anybody wants to get too much involved in Africa because there's nothing much to give there. So the Middle East at the moment is a very fluid area where everybody is trying to, pitch their tent and become the dominant factor. Russia's interested in there, China's interested, America's interested, and of course the new player, Israel, is interested to be a regional player. There's a view, obviously. The first 7 verses, just how one group overcame the Romans, and then this was Ghulibatul Rum. Yes, this was at the time of the Prophet ﷺ. So this has already happened. This has already passed. But in fact, this wasn't that they were oppressors. In fact, the mushrikun, what they did was they ridiculed the Muslims, because the Persians beat the Romans, and the Romans were monotheists, and the Persians were polytheists. So the mushrikun were saying, nah, your people of the book have lost. All right, it's 1-0 to us. But obviously it was predicted that then the Romans would win. The Eastern Roman Empire would beat the Persians, and they then would be victorious. And so Abu Bakr, if I'm not mistaken, was asked to enter into a bet. The Prophet ﷺ said, you should have, really been quite confident that you were going to win. And he did win because of the fact that the monotheists were victorious. So this was just a victory that was going on at the time. A bit like now, people are saying, well, who should you side with? Well, I don't believe it's that much of a difficult decision to make who you would need to side with. Would you side with Israel or would you side with Iran? Really? I don't think that's even a question to ask, because, Israel wants to be a regional player. Let's be honest with you. They want to be a regional powerhouse. They want to dictate what happens in the Middle East. They can use that under the guise of protection and safeguarding and defense and all the rest of it. But pretty much they're quite happy to want to, have what they call the biblical definition of what Israel is. And that is also areas where Ibrahim al-Islam ventured. And where Ibrahim al-Islam ventured reaches all the way up to Iraq. Because Ibrahim al-Islam wasn't always localized around Sham. He spent some time there. So, there's all these things at play. So I hope I've given you some things to think about and ponder. But I want to obviously leave you with the thought that primarily look at yourself. What it is are you doing? What benefits you? What harms you? And crack on with that. That is what is more important. The rest of it is just talk. It's just going to go around in circles. So, as I said, inshallah, tomorrow there is no session tomorrow, but we hope on Tuesday morning at Fajr time at Masjid Umar, we will have our guidance for the guided. Inshallah, make dua that the journey goes well. And also, please do keep an eye on the YouTube. Do keep an eye on the YouTube, and do also keep an eye on the WhatsApp channel and the Telegram channels, because the posters will go up on there. The messages will go up on there. So if you are in London, why don't you pop down, inshallah? We'll see you there. If you're not in London, well, get us online, inshallah, instead then. Barakallah fiqh. Ameen. And your good self as well, Hamza. Remember us in your du'as, and that goes to the rest of you. So inshallah, till Tuesday, wa akhiru da'wana, and alhamdulillah rabbil alameen. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.